Welcome to the show. We've got all our boxes filled, all our boxes ticked this week. All will be revealed. And I think we're covering just about every level of football, the men's game and the women's game as well, via Neil Redfearn. He's been a guest on this show before, the former Barnsley and many, many other clubs' top flight midfield player, newly appointed manager of Sheffield United Women. Greetings to you, Neil. Hope you're well.
Hi, Al. Yeah, good to be here, mate.
And congratulations on the new job. He's also a colleague of mine on Matches on TalkSport. We also welcome back Sheffield Wednesday writer for the Athletic UK, the online football site that's gaining ground very rapidly indeed. Nancy Frostick, good to see you again. Looking forward to the new season with the Owls.
Yeah, plenty to talk about. So no shortage of topics on the Owls this season.
That's right. We'll be talking about the new players with you and your assessment of the Owls prospects as the show goes on. And a Sheffield Wednesday supporter. He's not on the programme because he's an Owls fan, but he has been on before in his other guise, which was previously the manager of Worksop Town. And he recorded that wonderful sequence a couple of seasons ago, a record that may never be broken by that club, or any club for that matter. 22 successive victories. The wonder of Worksop was achieved by Craig Denton. Welcome, Craig, who's now the manager of Hallam FC. And it's good to see you still in the area.
Yeah, thanks, Alan.
And also, can I say congratulations on the new addition to the Denton household. We might be hearing from her during the course of the programme, maybe. I don't know.
Well, she just finally just got herself her head down and hopefully have a couple of hours sleep. So, yeah, I could do it with myself.
I bet you could. You've programmed that right. Just kicking off with you, Craig. You and I saw each other just this week at Hallam's first game back with a crowd, and what a difference a crowd makes. A thrilling 5-goal game in which you came back from behind. Against Grantham Town under-23s to win by 3-2 with 3 goals in the last 12 minutes. Have you come down from that yet?
Yeah, it was a cracking game, to be honest. It was a game for our lads who have not played at home. So, great to see the fans coming back in, and I know it's a staggered approach with the fans and a maximum of 150 in. But it made all the difference. And I thought Grantham's their youth team were a great outfit for us and gave us a really good test. It's nice to take the win and the plaudits in pre-season, but I thought the lads took a lot out of the game, and it's well worth it. It was a really enjoyable night.
Talk later about the fight for survival of clubs like your own at non-league level. But Nancy, coming to you, Sheffield Wednesday have been linked with all sorts of players this summer, and they signed several. Get your view on them, and Neil's as well. But there were a couple of Brazilians in action last night for Grantham Town, and they were outstanding. I know it's a sort of different level altogether, but 2 goals were scored by one of them, Juan. Lucas featured prominently as well. And I found out kind of on the grapevine last night that Juan, very talented young player, looking for a club over here. Sheffield Wednesday have had a look at him. I don't know, Nancy, whether, how that's developed or whether it's something you're aware of. But clearly there are a lot of players being considered by them at the moment.
Yeah, that's a new name to me, to be fair, but it wouldn't surprise me just knowing, how wide Wednesday are casting the net at the moment, especially when it comes to young talent and, players that they can pick up and grow and eventually develop into first team prospects. So it's something we've seen a bit more recently from them, which is really exciting. Also
there last night and seeing Juan's performance and the other Brazilian as well was Jack Lester, Sheffield United's under-23 leading coach, though he assures me that he lives just around the corner from the ground and would have been there anyway. But I think he was quite impressed as well. Neil, looking forward to the new season, a new job for you, but not a new job within the women's game. You've been there before, twice.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I was at Doncaster Bells 3 seasons ago. And as well at Liverpool Ladies, which was just a short stint. Really enjoyed my time at the Bells. You know, we had a really good side. We had a fantastic season. We won the league by 10 clear points. And unfortunately, the Bells didn't have the infrastructure to go up to the top flight. But I really enjoyed my time, and we had some really good players. It was a really good season.
You've got a big act to follow there, haven't you? Sheffield United women under Carla Ward, who's now moved on to Super League Birmingham City women. Second in the table last year, runners up. You know, that is quite a challenge, even for somebody, you know, with your pedigree, Neil.
Absolutely, and you know, I think the division's improved this year. You know, we've got 3 full-time teams, you know, in the league now, where there wasn't last year. So, you know, it's going to be a really big test. But like I said to the girls, we just want to concentrate on ourselves. You know, we've got a really good group of players. We've brought 1 or 2 players in, which is great. You know, the club's all for the women's team, which is fantastic backing. And it's a good place to be. I've really enjoyed my, you know, initial training sessions and game. The first game was on Sunday with a great result, 1-4-1 at London City Lions. So the girls are in a really good place.
Yeah, you've hit the ground running. And Nancy, before we get to chatting about the Owls, obviously you'll follow the women's game particularly closely, maybe, as we all do. And it's great to see the growth in it, the increase in popularity. And Sheffield Wednesday is sort of starting quite a way back from United, aren't they, with the women's setup? But there is one in the background that's ticking along quite nicely.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen a lot of clubs now who are really heavily investing in their women's teams, especially in the Championship. And you know, Wednesday's women's team aren't sort of directly incorporated with the men's club at the moment, but they're really flying under their own steam, and I think they've been promoted to I want to say the 5th tier, but I'd have to check that, of women's football now. So they've got a really strong youth setup as well. So I think they've got something like under 7s all the way through to the first team, all playing under sort of the Wednesday ladies umbrella. So yeah, it's going really well, and I know that the chairman there puts a lot of his time and energy into keeping the club going as well as they have been.
Neil, can I ask you? I mean, you've known Chris Wilder for a long time, and you and I have been at Sheffield United matches for TalkSport. I know you admire what he's achieved. How closely are you aligned to him in terms of your new role? Is it something that you confer about? I know that maybe you share facilities at times, etc. How close a link do you have with him in your position now?
Well, basically, I mean, obviously, I think it's my 7th day. I've been in over 2 weeks. Obviously, you know, the first team train through the day. We train 3 nights a week. The girls report 7:30. You know, in the 7 o'clock. Sorry, in the evening. You know, we train through the evening. So there's a little bit of a crossover there, if you like. Obviously, I've not been at the club that long, so you know, I've not come across many of the first team members. But the club is very much interlinked. You know what I mean? It's very much a strong family-based club, as if you like, for, you know, the first team, the men's first team, the academy, and the women's. Obviously, we train at the academy. We use all the facilities. We've got fantastic facilities. You know, we're so blessed. And there's a real feel of a togetherness, you know, about the club. It's a club that's really going places. I think Chris has done an absolutely fantastic job. I know we've said before how, you know, we've watched United quite a few times for TalkSport, and they're a pleasure to watch, I have to say. I'm not just saying it because, you know, we're here and we're talking about them. They've been a pleasure to watch, and it's a great story. And the rest of the club's getting dragged along with that, and I think that's a really good thing. You know, the academy's working as hard as they can to get players through, I'm sure. And obviously the women's team, you know, we want to try and get top flight football as quickly as we can. You know, we've made great strides. The club's made great strides in recent seasons. We're in a good place. And we've just got to try and continue that upward trend.
Yeah, do you follow the same template as an admirer of the way Chris Wilder, Sheffield United go about things? Do you share the same principles? Do you try to maybe emulate that in the way that your women's side plays? Well,
yeah, I mean, the values are exactly the same. You know, outrun, outfight, outplay. It's the same values, the same standards. You know, we perhaps play a little bit differently, and personnel dictate that. You know, most managers would say that. You know, the 3-5-2, if you like, that the first team play, men's team play. I'd be quite interested to look at with this group of girls at some point. I mean, we've got a way of playing, but it'd be nice to have a consistent identity that ran through the club, I'm sure. But like you say, I mean, you've got to work with the players, you know, and the players dictate the way you play because they bring certain values and strengths to that team. And obviously, like any manager, you know, you put round pegs in round holes.
Yeah. Have you got any overlapping centre backs? That's the key.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, you know, that was a revolution, really, when we watched them. I've never ever seen that before, and I thought that was fantastic. You know, Sheffield United were brilliant. You know, in the recent season, the promotion season, obviously last season in the Premier League. You know, to bring forward overlapping centre backs is just an absolutely fantastic thing to see.
Everybody knows about it. Nobody can do anything about it. It seems to counteract it. That's the strange thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, they've just got a really strong identity, you know, and that's all down to, you know, Chris, the manager, and, you know, his staff and everybody at the club, the players, you know, a really strong identity, and long may it continue.
Yeah, we'll come later maybe to how you feel Sheffield United might do this season, in the second season in the Premier League, and the challenges they face, the players they've recruited. But let's just go across the city, and before we go back to Nancy, I know that Craig here is an Owls fan, and sometimes his frustration bubbles over on his Twitter account. I've noticed from time to time. What's your view of where Sheffield Wednesday are at, and the kind of season that they're going to be in, and the challenges they have to overcome? As a supporter, are you optimistic or pessimistic?
I'd like to say I'm optimistic, to be honest. I'm really sort of looking forward to see, you know, the sort of the fresh Gary Monk, you know, bringing in, you know, BT and the rest of his new coaching staff, in being able to bring some, obviously, his new additions in terms of players. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to see, you know, how they sort of kick off the season in terms of, you know, what's the sort of the objectives really. And I know that, you know, the chairman, it's a massive club and everybody wants promotion. But I think fans can see the identity in the players and see where we're realistically probably going to go. I just want to see sort of, you know, that Sheffield Wednesday sort of, you know, Owls, the fans together and driving forward. I think there's been a lot of bit of animosity in between the fans and you know, and the last season and how it ended. Yeah, I'm quite optimistic, and I think we've got a great chance if we can, you know, get his recruitment right and start winning games. I think really that'll, you know, spur the fans on and drive us forward, and hopefully we can, you know, win games and get up that table.
I've detected that so far you've not been Gary Monk's biggest fan. I mean, that probably applies to a lot of the fan base, but the kind of waiting now in judgment. This is the time when he can be properly judged, perhaps, and draw a line under what went on before. Yeah,
definitely. You know, everyone deserves, you know, that start and that, you know, that fresh outlook. And I think Gary's got that himself now to go ahead and do. You know, he's an experienced, outstanding manager. And I think if we can sort of tie in with the ambition with the football club, and I know in regards to, you know, what the club's gone through in terms of, you know, maybe the point deduction and the fines and all that sort of stuff, and if that can be put to a side, it can now sort of concentrate on the job ahead. And I think, you know, a lot of the Sheffield Wednesday fans now will sort of give him that opportunity and that chance to sort of flourish.
Yeah, let's hope so. Nancy, you see it all at close quarters. You've been writing about the various comings and goings, and there have been a lot of both this summer. I suppose the headline signings have been Izzy Brown and Elias Kachunga. What do you make of the situation?
I think, to be honest, I think Wednesday have done really well so far in this window. We've seen in the past where, for one reason or another, they've kind of had to leave it late to get people in, and you know, getting them in early in this window is probably more important than any other, just because of the short gap between the two seasons. So to obviously get someone of Izzy Brown's quality, you know, we've all seen what he can do at various clubs, and I know he's been unlucky with injury. So he's looked really bright in both games so far, in the pre-season game against Leicester, and then in the Carabao Cup against Walsall. And he's just got that creative talent where hopefully he'll be able to take a bit of pressure off Barry Bannon. You know, I love everything that Barry Bannon does when he's at his creative best, but I think sometimes maybe it's a lot to ask of him to do it all the time, or to be the only focus for that. So yeah, I think Izzy Brown will be great, and Elias Kachunga's just a much welcomed extra option up front. Same with Josh Windass as well, where they're versatile, can probably play across the front line, and it was just, you know, Wednesday needed first of all players through the door just to fill that position, but also it helps that both players have got championship experience and, you know, have had good records at 2 championship clubs. So yeah, I think there's plenty of reason for Wednesday fans to be optimistic, and I know the club will still be working hard, probably right up until the final day, just to get all the pieces of the jigsaw that the manager wants and that the chairman can kind of make happen. So yeah, it's exciting, I think.
Yeah, thanks, Nancy. Well, the one huge piece of the jigsaw that's not in place is a big line leader. Neil, you and I watched Sheffield Wednesday quite a few times during Gary Monk's opening period, and it struck me that Stephen Fletcher was virtually carrying that team at times with the way he held the ball up. A huge gap to fill there, do you think?
Yeah, it is. I mean, obviously, you know, Steve Fletcher's a really experienced centre forward. You know, he's the talisman for him. He did a lot of things other than find the back of the net, which is the most important thing. He led the line, and obviously it was a great get out for him if they needed to go back to front. But I agree with Craig. I think that he made a good point where, you know, Gary Monk has now been allowed to bring his own staff in place. I think that's key. You know, obviously James Beattie. You know, Andy Hughes has come in. So, the message that will be going across now is a familiar message, you know, from his staff. He's rejigged it a bit. I mean, I think Josh Windass is a good sign. I think he'll only get better. You know, difficult one when he came on loan. I think now as a permanent, I think he'll only get better. Kachunga I've always liked and always rated at Huddersfield. I think he's a player that can create and go past people. And Izzy Brown, I think if he gets a fair run, you know, like Nancy says, I think he's a really exciting talent. And, you know, these players could be the difference between Wednesday having, you know, an okay season and having a very good season.
The profile of the signings has been very different, hasn't it? You know, we've seen several years of big spending, you know, shopping at the middle of the market or near the top of the market. And there's been a more realistic approach, had to be. But also, you detect, looking at the names that have been brought in, Neil, first of all, and I'll throw this out to everybody, you detect that the manager is driving it and it's not being driven from above, that the manager's got his head in terms of who he wants to move out of the door, and he's made a stand, hasn't he, on some big names there, and who he wants to bring in. That's important, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah, I think you're spot on, to be fair, Al. I think that if you look at the players that have come in, it almost look like pieces of the jigsaw that he's trying to fit into place. He's seen what he's got. You know, at times last season, perhaps before Christmas, you know, there were some really good signs. I thought there were some really good performances from Wednesday. And the wheels just seemed to come off for one reason or another, you know, towards the end of the season. They had 1 or 2 wallopings. And, you know, I think it was difficult for Gary Monk to take on the chin, and he's had to suffer quite a bit. So I think he's been really thorough. Been really thorough by, you know, replacing his backroom staff. I think he's been really thorough by recruiting. Like you say, these players look like they fit a jigsaw that he's like trying to put into place. And to be fair, you know, like Craig says, he's a proven manager, Gary Monk. You know, at championship level, he's managed at the top flight as well. You know, and I think that it's in not keeping. There's been a lot of things upheaval at Sheffield Wednesday, but this has been sound thinking. You know, they've backed the current manager, they've let him do all this, and I think it's all sound business sense. So to me, it looks a good piece of business.
Yeah, Nancy, there were lots of question marks, certainly among us in the media, about who was really pulling the strings at Wednesday. And, you know, was the chairman leading on everything? But do you detect that he's You know, and bear in mind that he's had to learn sometimes the hard way in the English game, that there's a difference in culture, etc. Do you think that he's maybe now looked at this and thought, yeah, I'll take a step back and I'll let my manager manage more than maybe managers had managed previously there?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Wednesday find themselves in a pretty unique position in terms of having the EFL charge and, you know, all that off-field distraction in the last 6 to 12 months, really. And in Gary Monk, they've got someone who has done it all before at Birmingham, and, you know, he knows how to manage those issues and manage a team under those pressures. And obviously, as part of that, you know, it was an obvious fact that Wednesday probably needed to change how they went about recruitment in terms of players and how much money and where they were spending that money and selling players as well, which is, you know, such a key part of meeting the financial fair play rules. So I think obviously the manager will have had those discussions with the chairman, and I know that he has those discussions fairly regularly about, you know, what's required and what needs to happen to go forward. So I think he's definitely the best person for the job in terms of knowing where they need to cut the cloth and how they can do that. And it's quite refreshing, I think, this window, not just at Wednesday, but across the Championship, that clubs that are getting players for lower fees or reasonable fees is being celebrated rather than we're the team that spent the most money, because it's not always sustainable. And I think we're seeing that obviously in quite sad terms with the likes of Wigan and Bury and even Bolton, who, you know, got quite close to not being here anymore as well. So it's definitely a culture shift, you know, beyond Wednesday, I think, as well, just because of the pandemic and because of the way football's kind of been going, really.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think Neil and Craig, I think fans are beginning to appreciate the economies that are forced on the game and not shouting from the rooftops all the time to show some ambition and put your hand in your pocket. There's a bit more reality, isn't there, guys?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more reality. I mean, shifting on back about Gary Monk bringing, you know, his own players in and sort of, I think with the culture wise that the rumours that the chairman was sort of leading that recruitment, again, is extremely refreshing. And I think, you know, that's embedded within the team. I think, you know, when players start to find out that the recruitment is not coming from the manager, and the rumours are true that it was coming from the chairman, I think that sort of, there's sort of something around in the air that when the manager's doing it, I think it just comes a lot more stronger. So I hope that, you know, that those rumours are true and that Monk is leading the recruitment. And it's refreshing again, bringing, you know, these sort of experienced Championship players in. And I think, you know, we've all hit the times in terms of around, you know, around COVID and those restrictions around, you know, sort of money wise and going out, shelling out daft amounts of money for players. It looks like sort of Sheffield Wednesday have doing their recruitment a little bit different. And again, what Nancy said, it is extremely refreshing.
Just as we close part one, I mean, we'll talk about Sheffield United's recruitment in part two. The big fear I've got, and I'll throw this at Neil, the really big fear I've got is that, okay, we're guilty in the media about this. We look at sequences of results, and Gary Monk's league record, I think, stands his last 23 league games, 3 victories. Nancy will tell me if I'm wrong on that, but it's really poor. And if he starts without winning the first 2 or 3, that stat builds up. And suddenly the people who are sort of lying in wait for an opportunity to get at him, you know, the sabres and the daggers will come out, Neil. And that could be destructive to what Sheffield Wednesday and this new management team are trying to achieve.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alan. I think that's the nature of the game, if I'm honest. Not just at Sheffield Wednesday in general, but I think, to be fair, you know, I mean, I don't know. I'm just looking from the outside in. It looks to me like Sheffield Wednesday put a marker down to basically say, look, we're going to plan here. You know, we're going to change the structure, the staffing. You know, we're going to be a little bit cute with our recruit. You know, the manager's obviously going to have a big say in it. That's what it looks like. And I think just going back to the game in general, I think the landscape of the game is going to change. You know, I think what's going to be really prominent now is, you know, I think coaches, head coaches, managers, they're going to have to be like player developers. You know, because I think that clubs are going to look at things and think, well, you know, yes, we'll recruit, and yes, you know, we'll bring players in, but these players will be deemed as assets, and they'll want to improve them, and you know, and try and you know, improve their assets if they can. You know, I think definitely Championship down. That will be key, because realistically, we don't know when supporters are going to be let back in. That they're obviously the main revenue stream of most football clubs, particularly lower league clubs, and I think that clubs have got to be cute how they look at it, and how they set the stall out going forward. And I just see that sort of a culture. I see a lot more younger players getting the chance. See a lot more younger managers, coaches getting involved in the game. I think it's a good thing. So maybe there's maybe going to be some good that's going to come out of this, you know, terrible pandemic regarding football. But we'll have to wait and see. For me, I think Sheffield Wednesday, you know, I think they've done some sound business, you know, over the pandemic period. But obviously the proof's in the pudding, like you say.
Brilliant. Well, some great thoughts to finish part one on with Neil Redfearn there, Craig Denton, Nancy Frostick. Do rejoin us in part two. We'll major on Sheffield United, both the men's and women's team in part two, and the challenges facing non-league outfits like Hallam FC with Craig. Do rejoin us in a couple of minutes.